Hey guys, Z House. Wow, it has been a really hectic schedule that I've had over the last month or so, and as a result, you notice our video uploads have been kind of infrequent. Usually we would do a Sunday video and then speed sim on Wednesdays. Well, today's Wednesday. Normally there would be a speed sim up. I just haven't had time to go to River City and do any filming with Andre, and then we have been super erratic on our Sunday schedules as well, and that's because over the last month or so, I have traveled to 3 different major MilSim ops. I went to the Emsato Centurion Joint Op Gladio, I went to MilSim West, the Caspian Gap, and I went to American MilSim Faded Giant 5. And obviously those all being weekend games, on those Sundays, I was usually doing BB Wars. And it's kind of hard to edit video or shoot and edit video in the middle of being in a game. I kind of tried to fill in some gaps with a couple of highlights from a couple of those games, but it really messed with the upload schedule. But I had an idea for a video based on the fact that I had been so busy actually going out and playing the game at 3 of these major event providers, and I decided that I would do a kind of video AAR of my 2016 MilSim Airsoft season, if you want to call it that, and the 3 event providers that I attended games with, and kind of compare and contrast and talk about what event provider might be best suited for you. Because I would come home from these games and go back to my local field or talk to my friends. They'd all be like, oh, how was this game? How was this game? How was this game? What did you like? Which one was your favorite? So I figured I would go on video, go on the record, and give my thoughts on the 3 games I attended this year, or at least the 3 event producers games I attended this year, and talk about, which one of those might be best suited for you and what I think each one brought to the table. Now, spoiler warning, I'm gonna cop out and say that I had a lot of fun at all 3 of the events I went to this year. Gladio was a lot of fun, Caspian Gap was a lot of fun, Faded Giant was a lot of fun. If you put a gun to my head and asked me which one was my favorite, I'm gonna have to go with American MilSim's Faded Giant 5 for a couple of personal factors that I'll get into. So since I just said it was my favorite, what did American MilSim do well that appealed to me? For one, unlike MilSim West, I got to go back to a hotel and get drunk in between games. Most of my audience are adults, the metrics tell me, so I can be straight up about that. Yeah, I would go home and I would have some drinks and I would hang out, after the day's activities were over. I enjoy that. I like going to these games to hang with my friends and call it breaking the immersion, call me a filthy casual, call me whatever you want. Get and go back to the hotel, have a cigar, have a few drinks. I enjoy that. That was great. So MilSim West was a very unique experience, but I do like getting to just go and kind of hang out and decompress at the end of the day in between my BB Wars. Then also, the other thing that I thought American MilSim did very, very, very well is they were very adaptive to a couple of things in the game that didn't necessarily work out the way they wanted them to. When they got to the AO, and apparently some stuff had been changed, and it really messed with the game plan like 2 weeks before the game was supposed to go on. And as a result, they were very attentive as the game was going on. They responded very quickly to any kind of real balance issues that they were witnessing. They were very good at moving the game plan around, at changing things up, and at just making the game move. American MilSim felt like it was constantly moving. Now, a lot of people might say, oh, well, that's not really quite MilSim, that, it's pretty much nothing but action the whole time. But I enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun to me, and I thought that they did a really good job of offering that type of experience because, again, call me a filthy casual, call me a speed softer, call me whatever you want, but for me, as a guy who likes to go up and get into the action, there was always plenty of action to be had. There were plenty of jobs. You had that organization. You had the squad level organization that you could, have the different roles and all that kind of stuff, and you were in contact with the command, and you knew what the battle plan was, you knew where the lines were drawn, kind of, and that all felt very, that was all a lot of fun, and it was all very strategic still, but there was always plenty of action to get into, and there was never any shortage of cost to shoot at. I was UFS. I don't know if any of you ran into me or recognized me. Probably not. It's probably for the best. This content sucks. So, coming off of that, the other thing I liked about American MilSim that they did, I thought, very well was the production values were very high. There was a lot that went into the game. I got to go on a couple of Guardian missions. Thank you a million times to Woodcock Jay of Woodcock Stone. He grabbed me and a couple of my buddies to go on a couple of Guardian missions. Those were a highlight of the weekend. Those were awesome. So if you ever go to an American MilSim event and they're offering a DAM or Guardian missions, totally sign up. They are really great. But that type of stuff where you had some of that, more higher production value, where you had role players involved, where you had specialty props, and where you had admins who were dedicated to just doing those, that was really cool. I really enjoyed that. And the AO that they had was really conducive to the way they did that. Fate of Giant was a great game. Cons of American MilSim, because, there are cons to this type of game. It is constant action, and some guys, it might break their immersion. They might want something that's a little bit more slower paced, a little bit more, platoon level tactical, and a lot of people would say, they might derisively say, you're paying $185 for an open play. Well, I disagree. I don't usually find too many open plays with the production values or team organization of American MilSim, but that is where we get into the next event, MilSim West, the Caspian Gap. So Caspian Gap, pros. Major pro of MilSim West is it is unlike any other event organizer currently in the United States. They really do offer a very, very unique experience compared to any other MilSim game you're gonna find pretty much. You are in the field for the entire event continuously. And while I just said that I really do prefer to be able to go have some beers and cigars between events or days of the event, it was really cool sleeping in the field and, rucking your stuff. And that was fun to me. And especially as someone who, enjoys the whole fitness thing, it was kind of an endurance challenge. And I think that that's kind of a unique aspect of MilSim West. And if you, look at the Rushing Russians and the Blue Diamond group, they call themselves, fitness groups as well as airsoft groups, because I think MilSim West really does push that endurance challenge bit of it. And making it all the way through a MilSim West event without any major physical problems, it kind of feels nice that, you got to ruck all your shit around for 40 hours and you were okay at the end of it. So really unique endurance challenge, really intense, constant tension. It was almost like a survival horror game. The best way as I can describe it is where you never know when shit's gonna go down. A lot of the event was kind of a slow burn. Like you were, maybe at the fob for a bit, or you were at your fire base and you didn't really know what was going on. And you might be holding guard duty for hours and hours on end, but then bam, shit goes down, or you get sent out to do something, and all of a sudden you're in contact. And it really makes you build up that anticipation to the firefight, and it's a unique pace. And that's what I think a lot of people find immersive about MilSim West events, is that you're not going to have constant firefights for all 40 hours, because, I don't think anyone's guns can handle that. But you are going to have a lot of downtime, but that downtime is going to be punctuated by some really intense firefights and some really unique game structure that I think is going to appeal a lot to people looking for that ultra immersive kind of endurance challenge style experience. Cons. I didn't really have any problems with the way MilSim West was organized or anything. Like I said, straight up, it was just a lot for a long time. And if you have any kind of pre-existing medical conditions that make 40 hours out in the field with no access to, maybe limited access to food and water, and very limited sleep. The sleep deprivation was a real problem. I actually ended up having a major migraine on Saturday night because I have kind of a medical history with migraines, and I ended up having a major migraine Saturday night after sleep deprivation all throughout Friday night and not being able to get any food in me. Luckily, I was able to work with my squad, and that's another thing though, is if you organize with your squad and platoon, you can deal with those issues in the field if you as a player are responsible and are, you know yourself well enough to deal with them and to figure that shit out. And that becomes its own kind of unique challenge, is figuring out where everyone else is. So like I said, it's a con, but it plays into the unique structure. So it's going to really depend on what kind of game you're looking for, whether or not MilSim West would be something you would enjoy. Because if you are like me and you kind of like to relax, then MilSim West might not be your top tier favorite experience. But for me, it was such a unique game, and it was such a thing that I did enjoy overall. I'm definitely thinking that at least once or twice a year, I'm going to have to make the trek out. And then that brings us to the final event I want to talk about. I kind of went in reverse order because I went to Faded Giant 5 most recently, then Caspian Gap, then Gladio was the first one. And that brings us to Gladio, which was an Emsato and Centurion event. So pros of Emsato Centurion. The staff there. Centurion is a new company. And Emsato doesn't really do the high production levels that American MilSim usually does. That's reflected in their ticket prices and that they have so many fewer sponsors. But everyone there was super professional, super nice, really great guys. The staff was awesome. They were also very attentive, they listened a lot to the player base, kind of like American MilSim does. And they were, I would say, kind of a mix between the constant firefights of American MilSim and the, slower pace of MilSim West. Because at least at the AO that we had, which was in the Poconos, it was a very mountainous AO, so you would end up trekking a lot. And it was actually one of the most hostile terrains I've ever played Airsoft on. I mean, you saw the rappelling video. It was kind of hilarious. It was awesome. So that kind of was in a middle ground where you weren't as constantly in action as you were with American MilSim, but there was still plenty to be had, especially on day 2. Day 2 was super action-packed the whole time. But they didn't have those production values that American MilSim had. There weren't any dams or super cool guy missions really to do. Each platoon had its, or each squad really had its job, and you would go do your job. But the game just, I don't know if this is going to make sense the way I put it. Emsato/Centurion, the player base and the staff that they drew, I would say were the most consistently enjoyable to play with. And I don't know if that was unique to that event, but I gotta say, everyone I ran into at Gladio and all the staff, everyone was awesome. And the background of the people there was great. And we got to do that really cool rappelling bit that, was kind of an impromptu little dam, I guess you would call it. And I think you had a lot of freedom at Centurion and Emsato's event, and you had a lot of player improvisation, and you had a lot of working with the staff who were out on the field. I mean, Dave from Centurion was with us for the rappel video, and I think you just had a lot of improvisation, and you had a lot of give and take between the players and the staff, and that's because the staff, no offense to any of their backgrounds, I mean, they're all super legit high-speed guys if you look at where they come from Centurion at least, and they all know what they're doing. It's just they're kind of new to the event production type of thing. So while they didn't have the background in MilSim production, they do have the background in just being commanders and leading people, and they were a lot great to work with. And the event not being as huge as American MilSim or as MilSim West. I mean, both those were 400 player games, whereas I think Gladio had 100 something. That just made the event feel like a much tighter knit type of group, and it made it feel like you were constantly learning something from working with these guys who were able to, impart some background onto you. And it was really awesome. So cons, the production values weren't as high. But that's kind of to be expected from, they don't have as many sponsors as American MilSim and MilSim West do, and their ticket prices are lower, and they were working at a very challenging AO. But I really think Emsato Centurion, from a growth potential standpoint, has a ton of potential. Those guys, if they really care. In fact, I'm just going to come right out and say it right now. Every one of the event staff I dealt with at all 3 of the events, cared profoundly about the quality of game they were putting on. And if you've ever been to a game where you talked to some people and you didn't feel like they gave a shit, that's really refreshing. So major kudos to all three of the event providers I went to for, in my opinion, putting on pretty kick-ass events. But hopefully the discussion in this video kind of helped you look at what you're looking for in an event and whether or not you might want the 40-hour continuous of MilSim West with that super high intensity and that slower pace and that endurance challenge, or whether you want the high production values and all the BB heroes that AMS draws and the crazy stuff that's a bit more expensive that American MilSim offers. Or if you want a game that might be a little smaller, kind of a blend of the slower and the super fast pace, but that gets that really tight-knit feel. And I think that MSATO Centurion were really strong at that. My personal favorite was the balance of the quick pace and the organization that you had in American MilSim, but that's because of me and my playstyle being, I mean, I won't lie, borderline speed softer at some points. I mean, if you see me play at River City, I'm aggressive, I get up there, and I like to get the job done. But that's me. Hopefully my feedback and the things that I had to say about the events is helpful to you as you analyze what you're looking for and as you make your decisions for the 2017 season. Personally, I definitely plan on attending events from all three of these event organizers again. I had a fantastic time at all of them, and I really hope to see you guys there. So anyways, this is the House from Gun Gamers with a little AAR on the events I went to this year. Signing off.